All right, coming to you from the rugged beauty of the American Middle West, we have Legal Legends of the Hoosier State, brought to you by the Indiana Trial Lawyers Association. It's a podcast where we speak with the legends of the Indiana Plaintiffs Bar, talk to them about starting their careers, coming up as plaintiffs' lawyers, and turning the trial lawyer organization into what it is today. So sit back, set the gear shift for the high gear of your soul, and get ready to hear from Buddy Yosha. Buddy, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Where are we here today? Are we at your office?
We're at the front conference room at my office at 92nd Meridian.
Well, buddy, before we get too far into it, why don't you tell us a little bit, why law? Why'd you become a lawyer? How'd you start your career?
I get out of college and a friend of mine said, why don't you go to law school? And I said, I'm not that smart. I don't want to go to law school. And he said, well, would you rather go to work now? And I said, no, I'll go to law school instead. So I went 3 years to law school. I get out and I was offered a partnership with Sid Eskenazi, who's a prominent real estate developer around the country. And I was with Sid for 15 some odd years. And I had a very good start because of being with him, because everybody respected him. And so it came easy for me to become a trial lawyer. My aunt sent me a case, and she was working for an insurance company. And she told me, she says, I want you to handle this case. And here's how it works. I didn't know from anything, and I got like a $4,000 settlement and a $1,500 fee. And I said, this is easy. I want to keep doing this. So that's how I got into trial lawyering and personal injury work.
Did it turn out to be that easy?
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was easy. I mean, compared to all the other things, I wrote a lot and I lectured a lot, but it's stuff that I knew, and that was all within the area of trial lawyering. And I never had a broad knowledge of all the work that lawyers could do, the corporate lawyers and stuff like that. So I stuck with it the whole time, and then my son Brandon comes along, and he's following in my footsteps, and very far ahead of me. My first 3 trials I lost, and I finally got $700 on the 4th case, and I was on my way. Brandon tried his first case 3-4 years ago, and it got a $20 million verdict, and I've never had anything that resembles that. So, well, there's inflation and all that, but that's a lot of money for him to get.
Well, he had the benefit of growing up watching you,
a little bit,
and learning from you.
He slept in my bedroom, and when we had a bigger house on Sylvan Road, Kessler, and in the mornings or at night, I'd give him a football, and he'd throw it at me because I wanted him to. He wanted to be a football player. He's 4 years old, and he broke a couple lamps throwing the ball at me, and he was on his way. He was very, very fortunate. When Brandon, I never had this kind of respect, and I loved running a football. He was, before he'd ever played, and I know this isn't about him, before he'd ever played a varsity down of football, he was ranked the number 7 running back in the country by Rivals, and that's the group that ranks all the college players. So be it.
So tell me a little bit about growing up on the south side of Indianapolis.
Shapiro's on the south side on Meridian, about 4 blocks south of that. Off a block or 2 was where we lived. I'll never forget that when World War II started, I can remember that my Uncle Sam
You had an Uncle Sam?
Uncle Sam, not the government Uncle Sam, my real Uncle Sam Abraham, and that's another story. He should be Sam Yosha, but I'll explain that. Uncle Sam um, enlisted in the army, and when he died in 81, born in 2021, when he died, someone that had exploits with him in Germany during World War II. I've got it in my office somewhere. It's unbelievable what he did. He says he made Audie Murphy look like a ne'er-do-well. He was so talented, and he never once talked about it to me. And when I moved to California in 1960 to hang out with some friends, lived with him for 3-4 months, and then he moved to Indianapolis, and Sid Eskenazi and I put him in a bar restaurant across from Glendale, and he made some money there, and then decided to go back to California. After all his war exploits, he goes back and has some teeth pulled, and they put him under, and he died under the anesthesia. It was unbelievable. All he went through in the war, and then to have something like that happen is just unbelievable. So much for Uncle Sam.
Yeah. What about where I was kind of heading with, Brandon being able to learn from you? Who did you learn from? How did you learn to be a trial lawyer?
Watching other lawyers, Earl Townsend, Howard Young. Here's one of the articles that I had that showed the big hitters when they did a book, The Best Lawyers in America. And that's it, maybe. And there was Earl Townsend, who later, this is in the early 80s, came in our firm for 10-15 years. He's number one as far as the voice and the presentation. Just he controlled the courtroom. Howard Young was very good. There's me. I'm the only one.
You look a little bit young. You look a little bit younger.
I'm younger than all of them. There's Jim Donadio, Ice Miller, Donadio, and Ryan, Harry Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been in every edition of the Best Lawyers.
This is This is the IBJ from 1983.
Yeah, and
wow.
And 83, 17, and 24. It's 40 years ago. That's a long time. And so these Earl, the highest place has nothing to do with anything in Indianapolis, supposedly, is at Crown Hill. Mm-hmm. There's a driveway you go around. Earl's family's buried there. There's only like the Kittle 4 or 5 families. And you can look, and as you look out and oversee it, you see downtown Indianapolis. It's a beautiful view, and I've been there a couple times. My first wife's buried there, and when I go visit her and my son that passed away, another older son, I go up there all the time just to look out and see everything in downtown. The Yosha name. It's remarkable how this happened. My mom and dad were born in Yugoslavia, Sephardic Jews in 1904. My dad, 1907. My mother. My dad, somebody gave him the money to get him over here. You had to show $20 to get into Ellis Island that you're not a pauper. And a family friend gave him the money to get over there. He's going through the line and at Ellis Island. What's your name? He says Abraham. It's supposed to be Abraham Yosha. And they then asked him what's his last name, and he thought they were asking him the first name again, and he says Abraham. So they say you're Abraham when he should have been Yosha. So I got all kinds of cousins that are named Abraham now, and they got it right with me and my sister. We're Yoshas. So that's how that came about.
Tell us about your first big case. What was your first big trial that really sticks out for you?
About 8 years into practice, a lawyer friend sent me a case, a civil rape case, where uh, what happened was two girls that worked for Avis. They had a not watchman, a guy that would take them to their cars for safety. And he'd take them to their cars, but one night he raped one of them, and he said, "If you tell the other girl, I'll kill you." She was scared, didn't say anything, and then a month later he raped the second one. Well, we got a hold, the family called me, and I was a lawyer, maybe 8, 10, middle 70s, that asked me if I could make a case out of it. And what we found out is it was a negligent hiring case. The guy that did the raping of the girls, uh, from his last job, he had raped a girl.
Oh my God!
And they didn't discover it at Avis, and we sued Avis over that for non-discovering it, and it started the movement in the country, like negligent hiring and retention. That theory wasn't hardly even around. I've got a couple articles on that here. Awesome. And we got like $1 million on one of the cases.
In the 70s?
In the 70s, that'd be like 10 million today.
I think it'd be more than that.
Or a lot. It was a lot of money, I guess. So be it. And I went on from there. I had probably 90, almost 100 jury trials, and I won probably 90% of them. And the test, if you win the case, is not whether you get a verdict, or it's whether you beat the offer. And I beat the offer almost 90%. So
can you explain for our listeners who may not know the lingo, when you're talking about that, what are you talking about?
Well, when they offer, say there's a car accident or the rape case or whatever, you have a mediation and they offer you money. Sometimes it's before a mediation, and sometimes if it doesn't settle, you have to try the case. And I had very good success of being able to say no, no, no on cases, and to get it done. Said, "I'll see you in court next week," or whatever, if it doesn't settle. And finally, Avis, the rape case, came after 10, 15 years in practice. Most of the cases were automobile accidents. And of course, that gets tiresome. And I got into some cases, like Humperdinck, when he got sued.
Humperdinck?
Yeah.
Tell us, for the
Humperdinck,
younger folks.
Humperdinck, he's still alive and still singing, I think,
Is
in
he
his
really?
90s. Yeah. One of the non-personal injury cases was Engelbert Humperdinck, some 40 some odd years ago, where the Attorney General in New York was his lawyer, and he called me and asked if I'd represent him. Starlight Musicals had him come in the summer of whatever year it was, and he had laryngitis. He lived in L.A. and he's a singer. And so he went to a doctor on his own, or they sent him, I think, and they said, "You've got laryngitis. I wouldn't perform tonight." He was supposed to sing that night. You better rest, or you're risking your vocal cords. So he left and went back to California, and they sued him because he didn't perform. And they had Starlight sold a bunch of tickets and this and that, and that's how the lawyer in New York called me to represent him on that. And we won the case with an all-woman jury. I don't know how they let that get by, but that's he schmoozed or whatever he did for to get the jury on his side. And
did he sing at trial?
Yeah, please release me. That was one of the songs. So he's still singing, and I know my wife at the time, he stayed at our house for a week when the trial was going on. They played golf because I only brought him in to testify. It was in, I don't remember what county we were in, maybe Hancock or Hamilton.
Why didn't you want him there the whole trial?
Why make hype? Don't let him. If they don't need to see him, what would he do to sit there 5 days? You got a very popular singer that's he didn't want to. He had to stay. He stayed in Indianapolis. We didn't know how fast the trial would move, but I didn't want him there till the end. You get more out of it, I think. It's at the very end.
Do you ever worry that the jury wonders where the plaintiff is?
No, I explained it to him probably in opening statement.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was one of the the most fun cases. I've tried so many traditional cases. I had a bunch of fun cases that weren't the traditional. I had a case for an astronaut in Broad Ripple Avenue one night. A policeman was arresting a drunk in Broad Ripple. And the astronaut, I knew the family, he came and gave him medical attention. He was also a doctor. And what happened is the policeman arrested my guy. And plus the other guy, the guy he was giving or beating up, and he gets in the tank where they put you on weekends. It was a Saturday night, and he goes in the tank with all the drunks, and they said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm an astronaut." Well, they didn't. And the next guy says, "I'm Santa Claus," and then Robin Hood was in there. It was really something. So we gave them 4 days and to settle the case, or it was going to trial if they didn't settle it, and they settled it. The prosecutor dropped it. He didn't want to go any further because he was part of NASA and Houston, and he says if we sue him, they don't want us to get popularity, exposure, and everything like that. So that was history in that. So much for that. I've had just a handful of cases that were non-traditional that I had very good luck with, and I'm thinking there was another rape case that I had that went to trial, and I don't remember the result. I know we won. I know we won. But I've had probably a dozen of the non-traditional type cases, and those are more challenging because they're different.
So, buddy, there's been a number of plaintiffs' lawyers that, in the trial lawyers organization who have come through your office at one point. I think it's fair to say you've mentored a lot of lawyers over the course of your career. What would you say is your best advice to the young plaintiffs' lawyers, the young trial lawyers who are listening to you on this podcast? What advice do you have for them?
Go to the seminars, watch the people that write and lecture, and learn from them. And I did it with people that were older than me. They didn't have a lot of seminars, when I first got out, but the ITLA has them all the time now with everything. And just pay attention to that, and it's not hard to do.
Why do you think it's important that we have lawyers like you who are willing to try cases?
Uh, how else will the community? You want the community to know, and it is very good to have that publicity.
So I've heard in your trial prep. Well, first of all, tell us how do you. This may be too broad of a question, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you prepare for trial? You've tried almost 100 cases or 100 cases. That's more than most anybody around. How do you get ready?
I do. I can tell if I want to target a case that I say this would be a good case to try. And I do an opening statement probably 6 months to a year before the actual case comes up for trial. I don't like to settle at the 11th hour the weekend before trial. That's all wasted effort. If I'm going to, I can target a case and say, hey, I'm going to trial on this case. And I have many cases. I save all my opening statements and final arguments and witness statements. And on opening statement, I can, I look at an old opening statement and I copycat it and formulate it to the case that I'm working on. So we've got all kinds down the hall of witness statements, whole boxes of stuff, that cross-examination, comparative fault, on literally every area.
What's your favorite part of trying a lawsuit?
Winning.
Beat
the offer.
Beating the offer.
It's very difficult, like I said, to settle a case late, because then I've done all that work for nothing. And I've done it, but you just don't like to do it. You want to see what happens. And the favorite part, I don't know, I guess final argument.
Why?
And rebuttal.
Yeah, why?
Well, that's when you get to beat up on them, tell them how bad they were, and rebuttal's really the best. We argue, defense argues, and then you get to do rebuttal. I had one time, Johnson County, where a dear friend of mine that's passed away was defending a case in Franklin, and one of my lawyers did the closing argument, and it wasn't strong. And I did good closing arguments then on rebuttal and close. And the lawyer against us stood up and said, we waive final argument. Well, that means I don't get to say anything because there's nothing to rebut.
Right.
And they nailed us. We lost that case because of that, and he beat us by doing that. I don't know if we'd have won, but
it's a gutsy move.
Yeah, and they did that.
So you're still trying cases, aren't you?
Yeah, but not Brandon. When I saw what he's done on his cases already, they don't need me anymore. I'm too old to be doing it, and I've done enough. The last case I tried, well, I did rebuttal on a case just 2 years ago with Brandon. He did a final argument on a case that we beat the offer pretty badly, and I wrote down A+ as soon as he sat down. And then the defendant argued, lady lawyer, wasn't very effective, and she wasn't very nice to us for the couple years of discovery. And I really didn't have anything to say in rebuttal after the argument that he made. And so I said a couple of them and sat down, and he won. So I think just the reward of getting the verdict, and I don't stay in the courtroom in the last 30 or 40. Well, I haven't tried much in 20 years probably, but I do not like the anxiety of waiting in the courtroom while the jury's deliberating on a case. And
so where do you go?
I go home or something, and I said, call me with the verdict. I always tried cases with someone with me out of the firm. And I said, call me when it's in. And I'd even tell them, don't call me unless it's over 100,000 or this and that. And so I don't like surprises. So I'd listen and make sure, who was calling and everything. I'd recognize the phone number. No, I don't know if I could say I recognize the phone number. Phones are so sophisticated now. I don't even know how I got the call. How I got the call.
Just hoped it wasn't somebody trying to sell you lawn service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and that happened.
What was it like being able to try Brandon's first case with him?
Well, here's what happened. A guy worked for Power and Light, and they were excavating, and there was some underground work that could have electrocuted a guy, and it did. It didn't kill him. He was off work, and the defendant, no, work comp sent him to a lady doctor that examined for work comp and says he's permanently disabled. Well, how do you, we didn't have anything to do with it. We weren't even on the case at that point, I don't think. And that's perfect when they say, an independent that we had no control over says he'll never work again, so it was built in. And that's the first case that Brandon tried 6 weeks before trial. I got sick or something and couldn't try it. And I said, Brandon, I've got all my notes. I'll give to you this and that. And that's the case where he got the $20 million on his first jury trial, 6 weeks out of law school. And it's just he stands up there, and I could never do this. I'd take my argument and stand there, and I'd peek at all my notes. He stands up there for an hour and did it without a note. Wow. I can't do that. I never could do that. So be it. He's got a built-in ability to do that stuff. It's not easy.
All right, while we were off, buddy, you were telling me that, of the, 10 or 15 best trial lawyers in the city or state even, you've probably trained most of them.
Yes, I was very fortunate. There's a little story behind this. In 1986, Vice President Quayle goes to the American Bar Association meeting in Washington, D.C., and he says the trial lawyers are ruining the country. They're trying to put insurance companies and corporations out of business. The president of the American Bar got up there and said, you can't do it. This is Quayle from Indiana, and says, you can't do this. Is not a place for this kind of dialogue,
Right.
And they kept him they kept him quiet, but the point was he say we need tort reform. Mm-hmm. He started it, and all of us, they picked up on it, on his speech, and they used it as a mechanism to go all over the country with caps on cases. You couldn't get over X number of dollars, and parameters that to qualify even to get the case to trial. It got very restrictive, and it did a lot of damage to the ability to get things done. California held on and resisted a lot of changes, but now they have restrictions even, and it's made it difficult. It's not a field day like it used to be. It really was very easy way back when. I was saying that I did a lot of written articles and speeches for the trial lawyers in teaching lawyers how to try cases. And a lot of them actually got better than me. They just, like Brandon, I can't do a lot of the things that he does. I can tell him what to do and lay it all out for him. But I gave a lot of probably 50 to 100 speeches to the Trial Lawyers Association and places across the country. I was invited to the Ann Arbor Institute 4 or 5 years in a row, and they got the best trial lawyers in the country. The only people that get re-invited that I ever knew about was Jerry Spence and myself.
Wow.
And we both got in. He's better than me. He was just unbelievable. You watched him. He might still be trying cases if he's alive. He's in his 90s. He's the best I've ever seen. And from Wyoming, small something, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, like that. He's just amazing. We did the Ann Arbor Institute at the same time 2 or 3 years in a row.
So what's the Ann Arbor Institute?
There's some in the brochure somewhere in that folder. There's it's the 5 years. That's it. I think it's an annual advocacy institute. Here's my name in 1983. What were you doing in '83? Not around?
I was pushing blocks around on the carpet for sure.
That's cool. There's Spence's name and my name.
Wow.
And I was like 5 years in a row that I was invited. There's 30,
wow.
83, 84, 85, 86.
Oh, Irvin Younger.
87. Brandon knows about Irvin Younger. I don't know what's he just a good.
He did the 10 rules of cross-examination, I think.
Yeah. A lot of these guys, they're really, really good. You get up there and you do a mock trial, and they give you a fact pattern, and you look at the fact pattern, and then you use that. Then they give you assignments on what, of course, the best assignment is going to be final argument,
right.
Instead of direct exam of a plaintiff. That wouldn't be very exciting. But I'd always try to get argument if I could, or part of argument in there. And it shows that all the times that I was there, I'd try and get that. And I remember we went to, my first wife and I, 2, 3 years in a row, would go to dinner with Jerry Spence. And he had just written a book. Did he write Gunning for Justice or something? Whatever he did was a great book. And I told him, he says, "Have you read my book?" And I said, "I don't like to read books. I'm dyslexic. I read very slow," which is true. If the pages started from the bottom, went to the top, I could read faster, but it doesn't. So I said, "So I can't. I don't know what's in your book." And he says to me, "Would you like me to read it to you?" And I'm sitting there with my wife there, and he's making fun of me. So, but he's the best I've ever seen, and I don't know what's happened to him.
Now, you joined ITLA pretty early in your career, didn't you?
Yeah, I was. Pete Obrensky, a friend from Boone County, got me on the trial lawyers board of directors, and then that gets you up to the top to be president. And he's the one that says, "I want you to do this." Oh, and he's the one that was responsible for getting me on the board. And at one point, we had, in the middle 80s, 15 lawyers in the firm, and maybe 30 to 35 paralegals and law clerks. Now that's a total of 50 people doing primarily my cases, helping. And they were very good. When Quayle gave that speech at the same time, everything dwindled. A lot of people ran for cover and didn't even, hang around wanting to be trial lawyers. It was easy sailing till it's still not hard, but at any rate, that's what Quayle had to do with a lot of it. And the irony, at the time that he gave that speech and said the trial lawyers, he's talking about me, because I was trying most of the cases, or the people in my office. Some of them did better things and better arguments and better cross-examinations than I did. Just because you can overteach them, and they're better than you. And I had a lot of them that were really good that are out there now.
And so when were you president of ITLA? Or were you president of ITLA?
Yeah, 35 years ago,
Okay.
1990.
Tell us about the role of ITLA in your practice over the years.
ITLA has been very, very effective at teaching young lawyers how to practice law, what to do. They have seminars. Every month you see something from ITLA on a seminar on anything you want to learn. And you get the brochures out and it says, well, you know, you can see when they're doing something on voir dire, opening statement, cross-exam, everything. It's very well organized.
Why do you think that organization is important?
Well, if you didn't have ITLA, how are you going to learn? Everything would be ad hoc. You'd be on your own trying to figure out what's the best way to handle a case or to do this. And early in my career, ITLA wasn't very prominent. Earl Townsend was the first or second president in the 50s, 40s, 50s. Earl and his brother went to Michigan. And I just always admired Earl. He went to Michigan Law School, and this has nothing to do with anything, but he was part of the first announcing team for television at the Speedway at the 500-mile race. He was in the announcing program. Yep, sure was.
That's a piece of trial
See
lawyer
if
trivia.
see if you can find that. Say, did Earl Townsend have anything to do? And they may not even have it recorded, but he did that. He was just so smooth. Charlie Vaughn and I went to a party at Earl's house one night. He's got a Rembrandt in his library. And I'm saying, where'd that come from? It didn't mean nothing to me, but it meant something to people that like famous paintings and this and that. So, you know, Earl was just really a good guy, and there's nobody like him, you know.
Yeah, his reputation is larger than life.
Unbelievable. And John, his brother, moved to the Bahamas, was quit after a few years that I was out of law school. What I did very early, you say, how'd you get started? I go watch their trials from start to finish, and I have down the hall boxes of a trial that I watched, maybe with Earl or Howard Young or Harold Soshnick from Shelbyville, and watched them. And they're the best around, and they were good teachers by just watching their trial. I'd go sit and watch the whole trial. And I learned by that probably better than anything. When I'm trying to think, when I first started getting out of law school with going with Sid, I had it made. He was a very prominent real estate developer then, and we were partners for 15 years. And I never had to worry about money. And I didn't have anything. You know, my dad called me. I'm at the law school studying for the bar exam. My dad calls me. He's friends with I'm trying to think. He says, I got you a partnership with Sid Eskenazi on the phone. I didn't know who Sid was. And I'm studying for the bar. So I already got it made. I had the best deal coming out of law school than anybody. I go see him. And I visit with him, and he says, I'm going to make you a millionaire before you're 35. And he did. He made it before I was 30. I was a millionaire coming out of law school at age 25. I lost it by the time I was 35, but he made me a millionaire right away. I wasn't good at preserving money and making it grow. I was good at spending it and losing it. So be it.
Let me put you on the spot. What's the proudest moment of your career?
I think being invited to Ann Arbor 5 years in a row when nobody else except for Spence. I've got all the brochures there. To be invited 5 years in a row, and you see all the other lawyers from across the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 4-day mock trial, and all to be invited to that 5 times in a row. I've got notes here where they said 1 year, on the 3rd year, I wasn't invited, and they asked me to substitute for Murray Sams from Miami, Florida, great trial lawyer who was in a jury trial and canceled Ann Arbor, and they asked me to take his place 2 days before. The first time I'm invited to Ann Arbor, it was cross-exam of a doctor was my assignment. I must have worked 200 hours from doctors telling me what to ask, showing what the assignment was, and I was already programmed and had everything I wanted, and that's how I did well, because I went to doctors to say, what do I ask this guy, what do I do, and how does that work, and that was probably the most beneficial. I got notes here, they say 1 year, it says for when I substituted at the end for Murray Sams, they said, you did beautifully for only having 48 hours notice. And they told me, I said, I can't get ready that quick. And they had, I said, they said, just ask your witness, a medical doctor, his name, and let him go. Well, I did that. And I lost everybody in the audience. They didn't care for what I said, well, state your name, blah, 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 and I did what they told me to do, and I wasn't very good that year. But that's probably the biggest reward. But I've had a lot. I've had a lot. And I've had a lot of downfalls too. So be it. I think we're done, maybe.
All right, buddy, that was fantastic. Thank you for being on with us. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I think I got pretty much what you needed me to say.
I think we did.
Most of it's true.